Hello, you're welcome to Issues of the Moment. The global economy is no doubt facing challenges, with experts doing their best across the board to curb the trend. Nigeria is not left out of this predicament, with the GDP standing at 21.04 trillion naira in the last quarter of 2022. Nigeria's unemployment rate had also increased to 37.7% in 2022 and is predicted to further rise to about 40.6% before the end of 2023 due to the slower than required economic growth and the inability of the economy to absorb the 4 to 5 million new entrants into the Nigerian job market every year. The Consumer Price Index, CPI, which measures the rate of change in prices of goods and services, rose to 22.04% in March 2023, up from 21.91% in the previous month. The Central Bank of Nigeria has made several financial policies to save the situation and put Nigeria's economy in the right perspective. And our focus on issues of the moment this week is Nigeria's economy and the quest for financial stability. You meet my guest in a moment. My name is Justin Bemunye, and I welcome you to the program. Once again, I thank you so much for staying tuned on the program Issues of the Moment. Today, Nigeria's economy and the quest for financial stability is our focus. And my guest is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ICANN, and a certified microfinance expert, Adolphus Aleto.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Justin. It's my pleasure to be here.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. My great pleasure.
As I said, Nigeria's economy and the quest for financial stability is our focus today on the program. But first of all, so much has been said, and it is still being said, about the present poor global economy. Tell us, how bad is the situation? And of course, when we look at it globally, how bad it is?
Justin, so when you look at the global economy, you're looking at it from different perspectives, and then you're using different indices to measure it. If you look at, you can measure the global economy from the point of view of energy. You can measure it from interest rate. You can measure it from inflation. You can measure it from climate change. You can measure it from, a whole lot of tools. Well, some people will say it's very bad because of what they see. Okay, and then let us take climate change, for instance. Attention is beginning to shift, from poverty alleviation, to climate change. The IMF and the World Bank will tell you that they are more concerned now with the issue of climate change. Several years ago, there was the commitment into contributing into the climate fund of about $100 billion, from major players worldwide. But the problem that the world has continued to have is that economies like the U.S., economies like China has, consistently failed to make that contribution into that fund. And then who are the weeping babies of climate change? Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and Southern America. So if you want to appraise the troubles, globally from the point of climate change, you say it is indeed bad because we are beginning to feel the impact of climate change in Nigeria. So it's a big trouble globally. If you also look at the inflation rate, inflation is going up, interest rate, US is increasing interest rate, so it's having a whole lot of impact, on the world. And Nigeria is not secluded because we can't, play without outside the global economy. So it's indeed something that should give us a cause for concern.
Yeah, you said coming back home. Let's look closely at home, Nigeria. Do we say that the country or Nigeria is endangered by this development and this global outlook? And how would you place our situation here concerning the global economy?
Yes, Nigeria is not Nigeria is not insulated, all right? And that's how I would like to put it. Nigeria is not insulated. And if we are not insulated, then it means that whatever happens abroad, happens to us. Take, for instance, the war between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine's export to us, has declined over time. And that war has lasted for almost a year, if not over a year. And there's been no victor, there's been no vanquished. Everybody still seems as if, the war is going to continue. So Nigeria is going to have to take its own bit of that global effect, from that war, especially in terms of the importation and the influx of grain, which comes mainly from Ukraine.
Okay, now let's look at the recent policies of the CBN, that the financial policies that CBN are put in place, to regulate cash flow, inflow leading to the introduction of new notes. What do you think actually went wrong?
A lot of things did go wrong, with that policy. I think what everybody has come to agree is that policy was one good policy, that deserved commendation. But in terms of implementation, a lot of things went wrong. I also think that, from popular opinion, that it was not fully thought through. Okay, yes, some people have also said that the timing was wrong, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, because there's never a better time that you can implement a policy anyway. So, but what many people would have loved to see during the implementation of that policy was CBN's ability to be proactive. Proactive in the sense that envisaging, the possibilities, of what could go wrong. For instance, when you look at the technology, at that point that policy was implemented, where the commercial banks and every other financial institutions that were supposed to promote that policy, were they ready technologically? The answer was no. So by the time that policy was implemented, the banks were caught napping. So you started to see breakdown in channels of payments. If you also look at the telcos, where the telcos also ready in terms of expansion, in terms of expanding their technological infrastructure, they were not ready, and that was also why you saw breakdown in those channels and technological failures. Then I'd also like to look at it from the human element. So that policy came at a point where we've had a whole lot of exit of professionals, especially IT professionals, exiting the country to other countries of the world. And with the shortage in manpower, it was going to be a big problem. And I think the CBN did not envisage that. Some other people thought that the CBN could have also been more proactive in terms of education. All right, education in the sense that if you're going to promote that kind of policy, you don't just assume that everybody is literate and everybody is learned. So what many have thought was that the CBN would have, through the agency, through the National Orientation Agency, which is an arm of the Ministry of Information, should have commenced an educative program, that would span maybe 90 days, 180 days, where people would have been well prepared and informed of what the consequences were going to look like. And unfortunately, even when the CBN, took a particular, introduced that policy and said, okay, it was going to be a cash exchange or whatever, eventually what happened was a cash withdrawal. So you send some money, you send your money into the bank, and what you get is not 100%. So how many people got that message, before the implementation of that policy? So a whole lot of things went wrong. And even in terms of engagement, of the players and the stakeholders in that subsector, I also think that not all the stakeholders were carried along, because especially when you look at the microfinance subsector, for instance, that where I play, I think that it was an afterthought that the CBN only started introducing or bringing them as players in that policy when they started having the problem of reaching out to people at the grassroots. I think that a lot of things went wrong in terms of planning, and I just believe that the CBN have learned their lessons. So next time they have the opportunity of introducing a policy like that, they should carefully plan it and then engage every stakeholder.
Now, we are talking about financial stability for the country, and now we're looking at some financial policies. Now, with this together, and as well, we're having a new administration now. What do you see, or where do you see these financial policies? What do you see coming with a new administration in place, and of course, to achieve the financial stability we're talking about?
Yes, you see, on one hand, one will say that you don't see too much. You would not expect too much because it's just a continuation of the same party in the administration. So a particular party, the APC. So if you look at it from that perspective, you will say that you're really not expecting, significant changes, because by the party structure or by the party ideology, they would have been expected, to run on the same, to deliver on those the same policies. But where I differ a little bit is in the personalities, of the leadership. So you want to put the leadership, the two leadership, and then look at, where they stand, personally. So you see one that is a bit reluctant. Take, for instance, the issue of subsidy removal. So you see one that is a bit reluctant, even though on paper, they want to remove subsidy. But you see the other one, this is the first thing that I'm going to do. That tells you that if you look at the personality of the two leadership, a lot of things are going to change. Okay. All right. So I see a new leadership, that will be courageous. All right. I see a new leadership that will be emphatic, and be willing, to take certain steps, that they think, might affect the economy in a positive manner. All right. So what are those policies that I'm expecting that the new leadership will take? I see them. First, they have already mentioned the issue of a subsidy removal. I have my issues with subsidy removal anyway. Then you also look at the exchange rate. Our exchange rate has, we've had multiple exchange rates like forever. All right. So will the new administration, be willing or have the courage, to have a convergence, of the exchange rate? When are we going to have a single exchange rate in this country? Okay, are they going to devalue? Are they going to further devalue the exchange rate, or they are going to, leave it as status quo and then find other means, of managing the economy? So that's something that, one will be looking out for. Another area that I will be looking out for the new administration will probably be, because Nigeria has a revenue issue. We have a revenue problem. All right. And that's why today, because our revenue is so abysmal, so below expectation, that's why we have a debt service ratio that is in excess of 90%. It's not something that is healthy, for you to have a debt service ratio of over 90%. But I am also expecting that in terms of policy crafting, the new administration should be able to look at our sources of revenue. Today, our main source of revenue is from sales of crude oil. So if you now begin to drill down, we are doing about 1.3 million barrels a day. And that is not even up to the OPEC expectation, for the country. And what are we saying are responsible? We say, okay, there are oil theft, there are sabotage, corruption here and there. I expect that this administration will have that political will and courage, to look at that industry and plug all the loopholes, so that we can have a viable, revenue base for them to do their job.
Okay, you are an authority in microfinancing. Now, looking at the high interest rates, would you say microfinance banks are able to take care of small businesses and low earners as it is supposed to serve?
Okay, so you can't discuss microfinancing without first understanding the objective and the basis. So I like to always say that there is what you call the double bottom approach, to microfinancing, and that double bottom approach, tends to explain that the microfinance institution, should be sustainable. Sustainability means that it is a business, all right? And because it's a business, it must be able to take care of itself. It must make profit. It must have earnings, that it can plow back and then always be there. That's sustainability. The other leg of the double bottom principle also says, it also mentions social impact. So it means that whatever the micro institution, is engaged in, must be able to make an impact in the life of the poor or the downtrodden, or the people at that bottom of the pyramid. So over the years in Nigeria, we have tried to measure. One of the tools that you can use to measure is financial inclusion, the rate of financial inclusion. It used to be less than what we have now. So now the CBN says it's over 60%. So it means that we have come a long way. The CBN says they want to do about 80 something percent, within the specified period. So what that means, what that tells you, first of all, is that the existence of the microfinance institution in this country, has been of value. Okay. All right, because it's been able to go deep into the nooks and the cranny of the country, and increased financial literacy, and then be able to deliver financial services, to those places where there were no financial services. So, having said that, you also want to look at the operation of the microfinance institution itself. Okay, many people have argued that they do not think that microfinance institutions have made the impact that they are supposed to make. And I'm sure that's the reason for this question. But, and in taking that decision, or in reaching that conclusion, many of them have tried to measure microfinance institution with the commercial bank. But without knowing that there are marked differences between the two of them. Okay? And having said that, you also need to understand the problems of the operators of the microfinance institutions. In terms of reach, the microfinance institutions, they cover a wider space than the commercial bank. But in terms of acceptability, in terms of perception, the microfinance bank has been put, at the back. In terms of engagement, stakeholder engagement with regulators, in terms of during policy formulations, they have been excluded, most of the times. So that has become a big challenge. So when there's a policy, that requires the action of microfinance institutions in this country, it is either they are caught unawares or they are totally, not in the picture. So trying to wake up to those implementation, slows down, some of those impacts. The microfinance institutions, they run at a very high cost. Their operating cost is very high. Their cost of fund is very high. All right, and then their acceptability, the perception of the regulator, towards the microfinance institution is also a bit different, from what one would naturally expect. So they do have their challenges, but overall, I think that they have made impact in certain areas, okay, and especially when conventionally they have run on a brick and mortar basis. But now what you see is that microfinance institutions are beginning to embrace technology. So with the advent of technology and the usage of technology, they have reached wider users and the customers. So if you look at that, I would say yes, they have made some impact, but there's still a long way to go.
Before I let you go briefly, we understand that just recently the Central Bank of Nigeria revoked licenses of over 100 of some of these microfinance banks. What is the impact of this on the economy?
Okay, so you need to first of all understand why the CBN will take that step. So as an industry player, we understand the rudiments, the expectations of the regulator. Okay, we have a guideline, all right, and that guideline, does specify, several reasons, why your license can be recalled. You don't forget that all licenses, issued by the CBN are provisional. Okay, so because they are provisional, it means that the CBN has the right, to withdraw it, from you or from the operator when they feel that you are not following or you haven't followed the guidelines that they've given, to you. Some of those grounds will include the rendition of returns. If a microfinance bank, is in breach of the guidelines, whatever rendition of returns, maintaining minimum capital base, and then maintaining certain minimum ratios that are expected and stipulated in the guideline, that is supposed to be the Bible, for running that operation, the CBN will take a stand. Now, haven't understood that background, many have argued that it is going to cause a run on the existing ones in the system. Many also share that, well, it is good for the system, because when you find that there are institutions that are not doing what they are expected to do, that are not complying with CBN regulations, it does give the industry a tainted image. So, and that the CBN has done well, in taking those institutions out of the list, the existing list of operators. I mean, so all those, they are neither here nor there. So, but depending on your location, depending on the kind of license that you and the kind of customer base that you have, some have a bit of enlightened customer base, some have illiterate customer base. So, depending on where you find yourself, you now begin to define and see yourself, whether it is positive, what the CBN has done, or it is negative. But for those people that may not understand the implication, there might be flight to safety. Many people might just begin to think that, oh, there is a crisis in the industry, and then whatever liquidity that is remaining in the microfinance subsector, the depositors will begin to withdraw them and try to fly to safety. So a whole lot of analysis can be given to it, but like I said, it will depend on the particular institution and the quality or the type of customer base that they have, and their strategy to communicate, because communication is also very important. Their strategy to communicate what the CBN has done is also very important. So if you have a customer base that is enlightened and you are able to communicate it in a positive manner, okay, it will pay you. But if you are unable to communicate in a manner that will convince the customer, of the action of the CBN, it might work against such institution.
Well, Adolphus Aleto, thank you so much for your time with us on the program Issues of the Moment.
Thank you.
I want to especially say thank you for having time to come.
Thank you. Thank you, Justin. My pleasure.
You're welcome. Yeah. Well, this is Issues of the Moment, and our focus today has been on Nigeria's economy and the quest for financial stability. My guest has been a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ICANN, and a certified microfinance expert, Mr. Adolphus Aleto. This is where the program ends. I thank you so much for watching, and I say bye for now. My name is Justin Bemunyi.
When the issue of tourism in Africa is discussed, Zimbabwe is a key country to mention. The Southern African country is a tourism hub as it is blessed with numerous tourist sites of utmost beauty, hence offering visitors the joy they desire and beyond as they view wonders of nature on display. One of the renowned tourist sites in the country is Mana Pools National Park. The park is located along the Zambezi River and the border of Zambia. It covers an area of 6,766 square kilometers. The park has special significance for photographic tourism. It extends for a distance of some 50 meters from the Zambezi Escarpment Mountains through the flat flow of the Zambezi Valley to the river itself, its focal point being the system of alluvial river terraces up to 3.5 kilometers wide, which flank the Zambezi River along the park's 50-kilometer river frontage. It is a region of the lower Zambezi River in Zimbabwe where the floodplain turns into a broad expanse of lakes after each rainy season. The park takes its name from the pools that still lie in the abandoned river channels that run through the terraces. Mana is said to mean four, referring to the largest of these pools, which hold water all year round. The pool offers tourists canoeing experience which is unique to the national park. Canoeing safaris are a very popular activity in Mana Pools, as this is an extremely beautiful stretch of river rich in wildlife.
Hello and welcome. These are the stories trending at this hour. I am Olajide Bello. World Health Organization, WHO, and European Commission have announced the launch of a landmark digital health partnership to strengthen global health security. This is the first building block of the WHO Global Digital Health Certification Network that will develop a wide range of digital products to deliver better healthcare for all. WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus says the initiative adopted would aid in facilitating cross-border mobility and safeguarding people globally from present and potential health dangers such as pandemics. And African leaders seeking to broker peace in the Ukraine war are set to launch their mission in June, South Africa said Tuesday. President Cyril Ramaphosa last month said Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had each agreed to receive a 6-member African peace team. The African leaders meeting on Monday agreed that they would engage Putin and Zelensky on the elements for a ceasefire and a lasting peace in the region. A statement from Ramaphosa's office said the president confirmed their availability to travel to Ukraine and Russia in mid-June. It said the delegation unveiled by Ramaphosa last month comprises the presidents of the Republic of Congo, Egypt, Senegal, South Africa, Uganda, and Zambia. Britain's Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, arrived to the Royal Court of Justice, Britain's High Court in central London. Prince Harry is expected to take the witness stand as part of claims against British tabloid publisher, the latest in his legal battles with the press. King Charles' younger son will become the first senior British royal to give evidence in court for more than a century when he testified against Mirror Group newspapers. Political star artist Kaya Marr held a painting portraying Britain's Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, and his wife Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, as members of the media gather outside the Royal Courts of Justice. Microsoft will pay $20 million to settle government charges that it collected personal information from children without their parents' consent, officials said Monday. The Federal Trade Commission alleged that from 2015 to 2020, Microsoft collected personal data from children under the age 13 who signed up to its Xbox gaming system without their parents' permission and retained this information. To open an account, users had to provide their first and last names, an email address and date of birth. The FTC said Microsoft violated a law called the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA. A proposed order makes it easier for parents to protect their children privacy on Xbox and limit what information Microsoft can collect and retain about kids, said Samuel Levin. And those are the stories trending at this hour. Many thanks for being a part of it. I am Olajide Bello.
With the contest for the leadership of the National Assembly just a week away, political alignments and considerations are being worked out in the game of numbers. Regional and party leanings are equally playing a role in what is just supposed to be an exercise to pick the first among equals. Equally, opposition parties are also making their presence felt on the direction the two gavels will go. Also on political update today, confusion in the confluence state as the road to Lugard House gets violent. Plus, countdown to the off-cycle elections in November and the lessons brought forward from the 2023 general election. I'm Fisayo Ogunfui. Welcome. Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State is the new chairman of the PDP Governors Forum. The election was conducted in Bauchi during a one-day retreat organized for PDP elected officials.
These are PDP stakeholders across the country who converge on Bauchi for a one-day retreat of elected officials. The interface is to discuss the primary objectives of the party through efficient legislation for a successful implementation of policies and programs in line with the party's agenda.
You must please remain resolute. Do not work in isolation from one another. You are a team and should always work as a team in order to achieve meaningful results and also remain connected to your roots, your constituents.
We must realize that our actions and inactions have consequences for the future of this party. I call on us to uphold party discipline, support the party, and also make sure that at all costs you'll be there for the party.
Meanwhile, after extensive deliberation, all the PDP governors unanimously elected Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State as chairman of PDP Governors Forum and Governor of Rivers State, Siminalayi Fubara, as deputy chairman.
We'll try our best with my colleague, the Governor of Rivers, Governor Fubara, to make sure we give this forum the vibrancy and the leadership it requires at the time when synergy, collaboration, and interaction are required.
The meeting centered on the need for unity among minority members of the National Assembly in order to ensure effective legislation.
The Progressives Governors Forum has endorsed the candidature of Abbas Tajuddin and Benjamin Kalu for the speakership and deputy speakership positions of the imminent 10th House of Representatives. The forum's chairman, Governor Hope Uzodimma, disclosed this when he received the joint task team in Abuja.
As part of stakeholders' engagement, members of the Joint Task Team in support of Tajuddin Abbas and Benjamin Kalu took their campaign to the leadership of the APC governors. They described the struggle as a pan-Nigerian project that will further unite the people, promote political stability, and create necessary network for good governance.
The number one thing that is really affecting the Nigerian project, which is unity, we'll use this opportunity come the 10th Assembly to ensure that we do our bit to unite the whole entire country. Because
no parliamentarian anywhere in the world, as a matter of fact, no parliament can succeed without the executive. Yes, you have powers for appropriation. What of cash backing? So you have to work together. Then the synergy must be there. So when you say, will they impose somebody? There's nothing called imposition. It's for the benefit of all of us. We must create a win-win situation where you have something to show your people and the executive also will have something to show their people. So we want to work together as brothers and sisters.
Members of the Joint Task Team cuts across all the political parties that produced the would-be 10th National Assembly members.
Still in the same line, opposition political party spokesperson and PDP House of Representatives member-elect Ikenga Ugochinyere says the Initiative for Leadership Development and Change, a non-governmental organization, has equally thrown its weight behind Tajuddin Abbas and Benjamin Kalu as Speaker and Deputy Speaker, respectively, in the 10th House of Representatives.
And at this crucial stage that we are now,
this is a solidarity visit by members of the Initiative for Leadership Development and Change Center on the CUPP spokesperson Ikenga Ugochinyere. They announced the endorsement of Tajuddin Abbas and Benjamin Kalu as Speaker and Deputy Speaker of the 10th House of Representatives to Ugochinyere, who is also Communication Advisor to the duo.
So what we are presenting to Nigeria is not because the APC zeroed in on the two of them, no. On a normal day, most of us that are in opposition will not have gone with APC. But we're going with APC because this is a candidature that is filled with capacity. There is competence here. And then there's an element of fairness and inclusiveness.
The center made a donation of 5 million naira to the Tajuddin Kalu movement with an appeal to members elect across party lines to see the leadership qualities in them.
Now, towards let's start this way, as of course new tenures begin in many states of the federation, and at the center, the political parties seem to be taking a backseat again, except in states fielding the off-cycle governorship elections in November. This 3-year hibernation, many believe, has not really helped in strengthening our democracy. But someone is in the house to put things in perspective. That's Prince Chinedu Obi, Director General, Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC. Is also an EXCO member of the National Rescue Movement, NRM. Thank you for joining us, Prince.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for inviting me.
Just like my introduction said, are you, the political parties again, going back to hibernation to come back again? What is happening? Why is there a lull, apart from where we perhaps have issues of litigation and then those getting ready for the off-cycle elections in November?
Well, it depends on the way you're looking at it, but I can tell you the parties are working. Yes, the major elections have come and gone, apart from the ones we're waiting for in November in Imo, Bayelsa, and in Kogi. The parties are working. Usually, there are the administration part, there's a politics part. Now, parties are getting prepared to face 2027 and then even for these season elections. So they're working.
Okay, let's talk about the work. In engaging the people in these past few years, many have said that it looks as if we were gravitating towards people, looking at the candidate themselves and not the political party. How are you trying to, perhaps capture the imagination of the people, perhaps with your programs and engaging them along the lines of ideology?
Yeah, I think that is a consequence of the experience of Nigerians in the last few years, when there's this feeling that some parties have failed them. And now what you find people do is perpetuate or move towards persons they feel to have something to offer to them. Persons they have checked over time with some level of integrity. Since it now looks like our parties are not moving within the ideological line. Do we have ideology around political line? Yes, but of course, there's some personal culture of Nigerians moving from one place to the other, which puts to question the issue of ideology. However, parties still have their ideology, and of course, ours is a growing democracy. With time, would get to be identified with something. I don't blame Nigerians that have now decided to look at capacity on the basis of persons, integrity on the basis of persons, and if that worked for us for a while, as a growing democracy, one day we'll get to the what you call the order.
Now, with the myriad of issues confronting the nation, what is the role of political parties in shaping a discourse and perhaps giving direction?
True. The IPAC is coming up with an agenda setting for even the new government. It's also carrying out a peer review mechanism to assess activities of governors. Now, which it thinks would help them deliver the dividends of democracy to Nigerians and further deepen our democracy. IPAC, being the body of all the registered political parties, have now seen the need that after the politicking period, we need to begin to think about issues of governance. Getting the governors, the elected officials, whether at the National Assembly, whether at the state, to realize that they have made promises to the people and as much as possible deliver on those people and deliver on those mandates. And as much as possible, what we're trying to do is to ensure that there's a constant watch on the activities of those who have been elected to ensure that they deliver on their promises to the people.
All right, let's look at some of the issues that, came out in the last, exercise, talking about the general elections. And, what keeps on recurring is the issue of, the political nomads in terms of people moving from one party to the other. And perhaps also in such situations, blurring the lines of ideological differences because of how easy it has been to jump from one train to the other in the subway. Are you doing anything specific from the party perspective to discourage this as it has now become a recurring issue as far as our election cycles are concerned?
You recall that in the last amendment there was an effort to see that there's a law now discouraging people to move from one party to the other in the character and manner it was done in the past. On the IPAC perspective, IPAC is now beginning to think about how a code of conduct can be drawn for politicians and political parties that would discourage that level of nomad, if I want to use your own language. Because, of course, it's not good that the people have build their confidence in a particular party, giving a candidate the opportunity to represent them, and the person jumps bail the next day. So I think what IPAC is doing now would go a long way in dealing with that, where persons stay where they've been elected to represent the people.
In some, fora, we've heard INEC say that even the issues of, voter education, a big part of it should also be shouldered by political parties. Are your members doing this, or are we only relying on, the election management body that seem to be overburdened by so many other activities, apart from just, conducting the exercise and getting it seamless? The issues of voter education, engaging the people, are we likely to see more activities like this in the political terrain instead of the calendar of waiting until a year or two?
Yes, it's a joint responsibility between INEC and political parties that voters will be educated. And over the years, political parties have been, considering for some parties that may not have as much resources as some others. But of course, parties get involved in voter education. From the IPAC perspective, you would have realized that before every election, IPAC go to states to educate the people on the need to elect persons they believe in. Don't forget, IPAC is a body that is non-partisan, is not an opposition party, is a platform for all registered political parties to come together and carry out their collective mandate, part of which is the issue of election sensitization of voters. And like I said, if you follow elections closely, we'll go to states to do sensitization for persons. During elections, sensitize people to know how to do their voting, who they need to vote for, how they need to vote, and how to avoid rigging, how to avoid anything that will go against the electoral system. So those voter education is something I PAC does consistently.
All right, let's move on and talk about, the voter that is getting more and more, important these days. And we're looking at the off-cycle elections in November. The All Progressives Grand Alliance Abuja governorship candidate in Kogi State says his defection from his former party, the PDP, to Abuja is not born out of desperation, but rather the desire to serve the people in a more transparent manner.
My decision to run for election, I didn't do it alone. I have the conviction that I can govern the state, provide quality leadership for the state, but I did it in consultation with my leaders. We have leaders. I had to run to our traditional politicians, people that have been in the game over the years, that have much experience. And after the primaries, we sat down, we did a post-mortem, what has happened, what do we do? When you have a government in place that provides the basic needs of the people, what are the basic needs of the people? Quality education, good roads, good hospitals, human capital development. Nobody will complain where you come from. That's why you see in developed countries, a brother can be governor in one state, another brother in another state. As long as you are working, nobody looks at where you come from. So we pray and hope that if we're given opportunity to serve the state for 4 years, we'll make a remarkable difference. We'll bring godly leadership to the state so that people can see and emulate. We intend to put Kogi on the world map. Should be a basis, a yardstick to judge how government should be run. That is what we intend to achieve.
Moving on now towards a successful takeoff of legislative business in state assemblies, lawmakers-elect have been trained to understand the functions, operation and processes of legislation. The training was put together by the National Institute for Legislative Studies and the German organization Konrad Adenauer Stiftung.
Induction is to enable new lawmakers understand their roles, responsibilities and the functioning of the legislature. It is also to provide them with comprehensive understanding of legislative procedures, rules and protocol.
In some of the State House of Assembly, there's a turnover rate of over 90%. This means many new legislators who are not familiar with the works and, of course, the legal basis also.
The knowledge we have, we have invested on the previous lawmakers are now wasted. So we're starting all over again.
And for the lawmakers, this is important to make them carry out their responsibilities.
Out of the 55 members elect we have here, only 13 are coming back. I mean, they are the returnees. About 43 of us are new. So this capacity building is very, very important.
And being a new member elect, we are trying to gather knowledge from here and there. And this is a good avenue for us to be able to gather and also implement what we are asked to do by our people.
As we can see, the workshop and the induction is strictly about legislative businesses. And for me as a new member, I believe it's very important for us because it gives us a foundation and gives us a clear about the legislative businesses as we resume the plenary very soon.
More of such training will be held for lawmakers across the nation.
We'll stay here with the Director General of the Interparty Advisory Council, Prince Chinedu. And you saw that report just now. A lot of fresh faces coming to the different houses of assembly, the State House of Assembly, and of course the State House of Assembly, as well as the National Assembly. But will these fresh faces naturally translate to quality legislation?
Well, that's a challenge in older democracies. You find that you have persons who spend as many times as possible in the legislature. The turnover, for me, is still part of the challenge of a growing democracy, and of course the show of loss of confidence of the people in the ones they've elected before. I think that this level of capacity building, which NEEDS is doing, and more of it, would help to build the capacity of persons to get the job done. Going forward, people should be encouraged to retain legislators they know have the capacity to enrich our legislation. But of course, that situation as it is today, the challenge of confidence in those who have elected, the trust deficits we have within the leadership, those are the consequences. But we'll continue to manage until such a time where we'll have a more stable system.
But what that means is that the legislations that will be churned out of this, various houses of assembly would have direct impact on the lives of the people. So I may have to repeat this question: Would the quality of legislation be affected, or should we just say it's part of the process and then what can we really do? For instance, from the party perspective, would you be able to do something in terms of helping your members who are in houses of assembly in terms of capacity building and perhaps the party standpoint in terms of the issues being discussed on the floor of those houses of assembly?
Whether it will affect the quality of legislation is totally not in doubt because experience counts. However, don't forget that the legislature also come with retinue of assistants. Most of them have remained in that system for a long time. So I'm sure with the continued training, because no one, even those who've spent 200 years in the legislature, will still need to be trained at every point in time. So constant capacity building would be the solution to it. And from the perspective of the parties, the Interparty Advisory Council, working with NIPS, working with NILS and some other organizations, constantly build the capacity of legislators, capacity of politicians across board, so that we'll continue to keep them in tap with current realities.
All right, before we go, let's take this one from the current adjudications that we're seeing across the nation, but this one from the very top. The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party in the 2023 presidential election, Atiku Abubakar, called more witnesses on Monday's sitting of the presidential election petition court. We have details of this and Labour Party's petition as well.
In his continued push to prove the case of alleged electoral fraud in the February election, Counsel to Atiku Abubakar and PDP, Eita Ojegede, senior advocate of Nigeria, led 4 more witnesses in evidence. The first was former Minister Abia Sekibo from Rivers State, who, having adopted his written statement as evidence in the case, told the court during cross-examination that as a coalition agent for Rivers State in the election, he observed that results were not uploaded from many polling units across the state. When asked how many polling units were in Rivers State, he said about 6,000, but monitor counting and uploading of results in about 20 polling units. On allegation of harassment and intimidation by agents of a political party, which prevented uploading of results as alleged, he said that he did not know any of the names of the perpetrators. 2 other witnesses from the FCT, including the PDP chairman FCT, Mohammed Babaji Madaki, and one Abraham David, who resides in Kamajiji in the FCT, testified. In their written statements deposed to, they raised issues of alleged irregularities in the conduct of the presidential election and equally alleged that the declaration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu by INEC was illegal as he did not poll 25% of votes in the FCT. But during cross-examination, Respondents' Council asked them whether Atiku Abubakar polled 25% votes in the FCT or they are legal practitioners to know the interpretation of the said law being relied upon. They said no. The fourth witness for the day, Ibrahim Mohammed Hamza, came from Lafia, Nasarawa State. He told the court that it was not the result that he signed that was announced. When asked to tender the authentic result he claimed, he said it is with the PDP National Coalition agent. Respondents' Council, including Abubakar Mahmood, Wole Olanipekun, and Latif Fagbemi, all senior advocates of Nigeria, asked whether he wanted the results from Nasarawa State, where Labour Party won, to be cancelled, and he said yes. So far, 10 witnesses have been called by Atiku Abubakar and the PDP, with more to be called on the 6th of June 2023, when the court continues with further hearing of the petition. Meanwhile, Peter Obi, through his legal team, at Monday's sitting tendered certified true copies of EC8As from local government areas in 8 states. The states include Ebonyi, Nasarawa, Delta, Kaduna, Ondo, Sokoto, and Kogi states. These documents were admitted in evidence by the court.
This concludes our program today, and we want to say a special thanks to Prince Chinedu Obi, Director General, Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, for coming at such a short notice. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Fisher.
Just in a word, what will we learn from this, the elections that can help us in November, in the world?
Well, I think the major challenge of the last election being that the presidential election was not electronically transmitted. I think going forward, we should do what it is that we've said to the people.
All right, that has been the program today. We'll be back on Friday for another package of political updates. We'll be looking, of course, forward to those off-cycle elections. And, of course, we're giving you updates as the political terrain begins to take shape. First, for the battle for the gavel. And, of course, we'll be looking at who fills what position as the new administration continues to gather momentum and, of course, tries to deliver on its promises. My name is Fisher Ogunfuyi, thanking you for being there and urging you to play your politics for the greater good and keep it locked on the Nigerian Television Authority, Africa's finest and largest for news, reviews, previews, and interviews. Bye-bye now.
NTA, you can't beat the rich.
This is the network service of the NTA.
It's a story that dates back to the late 20th century in the southwestern cities of Abuja, Ibadan, and Osogbo. Throughout the course of history, Yoruba women used various methods to design textiles, most notably resist dye patterns and primarily indigo dye. Transcending beyond just fabric or a fashion statement, the timeless techniques of batik, adire, and tie-dye are sacred cultural art forms carrying the richness of Yoruba culture within the intricate designs. The contemporary revival of these art forms cannot be discussed without mentioning the work of world-renowned Nigerian artist and textile designer Nike Davies Okundaye. Finding that the traditional methods of weaving and dyeing were fading in Nigeria, she set about launching a revival of this aspect of Nigerian culture. Building art centers offering free courses for young Nigerians to learn traditional arts and crafts. To date, she has art centers in Lagos, Osogbo, Ogidi, and Abuja. In addition to learning batik, adire, and tie-dye, students at her centers engage in a variety of arts and cultural activities that aim to keep the generational knowledge alive and well. Our exploration today brings us to the Abuja location, where we learn more about the history and preservation of these cultural art forms. Places like the Nike Research Center for Arts and Culture exist to promote and preserve the rich culture and heritage of Nigeria. Today we'll be specializing in the production of beautiful fabrics using local dye. Welcome to your week in culture across the globe. I am Onyeka Chioba, and this is Today's Style. Batik has existed for centuries. This age-old practice has been handed down from generation to generation. And today, our trusted tour guide is going to take us through the history and the detailed process.
This is Iyalode of Osogbo at that time, and then this is Iyaloja. The both of them actually normally support the king in anything he wanted to do. So he respected so much, and up to now, he still kept their statue in his kingdom. So that's why we put both of them, we put their statue as well here. This, their dressing, what they are wearing is called adire design. The adire design is actually indigenous design that our early mother normally do. They have the way to design their own fabric. This is what they do. They go to the farm and then they get cassava. When they get the cassava, they turn cassava to paste. So that paste, they used to design on the fabric. And then when you say done the fabric, and then they dry it. And later they go to the leaf, which I'm going to show you later down there. And then they turn that leaf to dye. They soak it. So they soak this one, they have already designed cassava paste inside. So later when they bring it out, they scrape it, and then this design come out. They have their tools, because this design you see, they use chicken feather to make all the curves, and then they use knife to make any dots, and then they use piece of broom to make any line they wanted to make on it.
This is a result of the natural dye from the indigo leaf used right here at the Nike Research Center. Indigo has been used as a dye in Africa for at least 2,000 years. Indigo is an organic substance. It comes from the indigo plant, which grows wild in Nigeria. During the beginning of the rainy season, the leaves are harvested and then dried. After they have dried, they are formed into little balls which are then used to prepare the dye. The traditional production of indigo-dyed adire involves the input of 2 female specialist dyers who control production and marketing of adire, and decorators who create the resist patterns. In the oldest forms of adire, 2 basic resist techniques are used to create soft blue or white designs to contrast with a deeply saturated indigo blue background. For this tie-dye method, fabric is tied or wrapped with raffia palm. Artisans tie the raffia palm around corn kernels and pebbles to create tiny circles on the textiles. This method involves starchy maize or cassava paste, hand-painted onto the surface of the cloth as a resist agent using a small broom or chicken feather. Further experimentation led to 2 additional techniques. Another tie-dye method, which involves stitching the cloth with thread prior to dyeing to produce fine-lined motifs. Once dyed, the stitches are removed, leaving a unique design. This lesser-known method is produced with the aid of zinc stencils to control the application of the resist starch. The motifs used in adire and the labels attached to them reflect the concerns of indigenous and contemporary Yoruba life. The world of nature, religion, philosophy, everyday life, and notable events.
And each of these have names. Okay, this one is crab. This one is seed. This one is leaf. This one is ant. This one is ocean. This one is star. This one is nail. Why this one is grass. Okay. So each of them have they have names. And then, so later we can use them to combine them together. And then later they form. So this component of freehand is something that you see around. We turn them to freehand pattern because later all these things you see join them together to become one pattern. You can see like horn, like a crown, like a leaf, like a firewood. So different of them. This one is a crown. This one is a horn. This one is a leaf. This one is firewood. But abstract form of it. So then we combine them together later and then we turn it to a pattern. It turns. Then that's how we achieve this. So this is a full freehand pattern. It starts from motifs. Everything you see here started from, like this one started from a line. Mm-hmm. So this line continue consistently and then all join together and then it becomes repetition. Later it turns to pattern.
In the second half of the 20th century, with the introduction of a broader color palette of imported synthetic dyes, the label Adire was expanded to include a variety of hand-dyed textiles using wax-resist batik methods to produce patterned cloth in a dazzling array of dye tints and hues. This is the method that the workshop students are carrying out today.
What it's doing is called candle wax batik. And then this candle wax batik, the design that it's doing is called freehand pattern because it's a combination of different things you can see in Africa, like a horn, like a crown, like different things like that. You can just see. So, like, what is using on this one is using foam. The method of this one is that the wax prevents the color of the fabric. Anywhere that you apply the wax on the fabric, the dye will not penetrate inside. But it's not really foam, it's high-density foam. And then we trim it to pencil shape. So that, and it has capacity that whenever we dip it to something, like a liquid something, it can absorb. And when we put it on the fabric, it can dispense on it. So, this is the wax that we normally use. The effect of this wax is to prevent the color of the fabric from the dye. Whenever I use this candle wax to design on the fabric, the dye will not penetrate. So what we do is that it's actually solid, but on here we have stove and then small pot, which is a waxing pot and then waxing stove. So we melt the wax inside this small pot and then we dip this foam inside it, and then we use it to design anything we want to design on the fabric. You can use it to write name or to make any design. So and after that, we take it to the dye, to the color. And then we dip the fabric into the dye, any color that we want. So when we dip this one into the indigo color like this, and then all the parts that we design with this candle wax will retain the color as the white. And the other part of the fabric will go for the color that we take it to. The color of this fabric initially is white. So we use candle wax to cover this part, which is white, this is all the design. And later we dip into this color, which is indigo color. And then when we dip this color, so every part that we use candle wax to design, the dye did not penetrate. After we have done it, and then the wax, is stained there, and then the color is rhyme, everything is balanced. What we do is that we remove the wax from the fabric. It's called the waxing processing. So, this is what we do. We boil the water. So when you get to a boiling point, we soak the fabric inside it, and then we remove the fabric and soak it inside the cold water, and then we wash away the candle wax. And then they turn to the normal fabric like this. So the same process is what I use as well to design this fabric, the one I put on as well too. Most of the things we design over there, when we come to this place, we dye them. Like most of these pots you see, it's called dye pit. What you see now is green, but it will change later to the like purple. From purple, it will change to this color of navy blue, indigo. Okay. So the first time you first did your fabric, you get something lighter blue. The more you are dipping it, the more it's getting darker. The more you leave it inside the dye, the more it gets darker. Till you get the indigo color. If you look at your hand now, let me see your hand. Can you see our hand now? Okay. Your hand gets darker now.
I started this work from Osogbo after school. And it has really been helping me because I derive joy from it. And I've been in Abuja for over 7 years now. I've taught a lot of students, even from high institutions. I've taught people who are older than me. I've taught people who are younger than me. I'm working on a fabric called Tero. Initially, I'm supposed to have multicolors on the fabrics, but at first I'm trying to keep to the white part of the fabric. After this, I will take it into the dye, put some different colors on it. Then you see the varieties on the fabric.
My motive and aim of like going into textile and wanting to like have the knowledge of batik, tie and dye, and the rest of them is so that I can actually adapt it into a casual lifestyle. Like you bring tradition into the picture and like make it, use it to like add beauty and color. I got to find about this place from my lecturer in school. During one of our lectures, she made mention of Mrs. Nike and how she's impacted lives. She talked about her works and how she used textile to like go places and make names for herself. I decided to like make use of this opportunity to come here and learn. Maybe not really making names for myself like that, but at least in knowledge.
Nike Davis Okundaye has inspired a younger generation of designers, including our featured designer, Muyiwa Togun.
With Roy Urban Collections, Muyiwa Togun is taking batik from Nigeria to the rest of the world. His works have also been featured right here at the Nike Research Center for Arts and Culture. We'll sit down now with the designer for a chat about his creative process and also take a look at some of his recent designs.
My name is Muyiwa Togun. I am an artist and textile designer. I specialize in making handmade batik textiles, indigo, tie and dye, and marble. After which we use these textiles to design some fashion pieces, interior and exterior designs. And I also paint on canvas. I do mural painting, which is painting on the wall. I do body art.
Many of the world's great artists and visionaries experience a process of awakening, a symbolic metamorphosis that allows them to step fully into their purpose. For Muyiwa Togun, it came a few years ago when losing a lucrative job as an IT specialist put him through a tumultuous period. During this time, he was short on prospects, even homeless at some point, but it brought him closer to his true calling as an artist. The first step was to make his way back home.
I went to Osogbo, which was where the time I grew up, and that was where I got exposed to this artistic world. You know, I've always known Mama since I was little. I was actually living like a few blocks away from where a gallery in Osogbo was. I used to watch her entertain guests who come from all over the world to watch the artists that was working in the gallery perform and everything. So I had to go back to like a perfect artistic design and textile design in Osogbo after I lost my job. I went there, and then at the same time I was learning batik and painting in Osogbo Artist Village.
The influence of the iconic Mama Nike is a connective thread for Togun and many Nigerian artists, preserving the culture through their craft. From spending his childhood immersed in the cultural displays at the Nike Art Center in Osogbo, to joining the Artist Village Collective, to hone his craft of batik, adire, as well as tie-dye. These pivotal moments in Togun's life came full circle when he would finally meet the artist live and in color. This meeting birthed a collaboration between the two artists that eventually led to Togun co-managing the Nike Center in Abuja and conducting workshops to pass this revered craft onto a new generation of artists. Through art education, he seeks to engage and empower, creating a network of opportunities for many who simply would otherwise fall through the cracks.
It's not a selfish idea. It's not just for me. It's to give back to the community. So as long as you have something you are interested in learning, most of the people, they didn't like grow up being an artist. Came as students, you learn. Engaging like unemployed youth that are artistic and interested in what we do. So I've been there before. I know what it is not to have resources that you need, or when it seems like you don't have hope. I've had days without food for like 3 days minimum. It's not because I don't want to eat, but it's because I didn't have anything to eat. I have a couple of artists that I work with, tailors that I work with, laundry guys, courier guys. Anytime I have production, it puts food on their table, it puts money in their pocket. So the little we can do from our power now, as we grow, the idea and the dream come bigger as well. You give more. The more you get, the more you keep.
The root, the origin, the source. Themes and concepts frequently referenced in Togun's work encapsulate the essence of his homecoming, arriving at one's purpose by returning to the place where it all started. His journey in the world of art and fashion really began to take shape in Osogbo, and he explores the spiritual and metaphysical elements of African history and culture in many of his pieces, most notably his signature art piece.
What motivated that was my story, basically, because I felt like I was in a particular place at a time. I wanted to be there because I thought like there were better job opportunities. But truthfully, just for things to turn around for me, I needed to go back to where I came from, which is the root. Like I needed to like swallow my pride actually and go there. And not just go there and be productive, do something. It was a place known for something that I have passion and interest for, which is like the batik making, the adire, especially the local one, which is all organic. You get what I'm saying? Just the one is cassava paste and the eluli, which is popularly called indigoli. Going back to our ancestors, some of the culture and practices have been taken away. Regardless of where you come from, you need to stay rooted, you need to stay connected to your roots, your culture, your people. Practices you're doing initially that makes things, that made things work. And then going back to the history of slavery, how our people were taken from Africa to Europe and America and the rest of the world. What actually helped a lot of them was staying connected to their roots, where they came from. My signature art piece is inspired by a whole lot of history about Africa and African people. So if you look at it, and you know about the history, how slaves tried to escape the slave masters and everything, there were patterns of hairstyles that people actually create, women would make on their hair, just to show the escape routes, like for those who understand amongst them.
For Togun, blending art and fashion was a natural progression. All the patterns on every single piece of art or textile work is produced by hand, not by printing. Each design is inspired and unique. Togun has made an impact with his art and his design brand, Roy Urban Collection, not just in Nigeria, but in the United States as well, where he splits his time. Through Roy Urban Collection, Muyiwa Togun is affording Africans at home and in the diaspora an opportunity to connect with their roots every day. For Togun, no medium is wasted in making his mark. His most recent runway show was at Philadelphia Fashion Week this year, where models showcased his